everybody? Welcome to the Brand Blueprint. And we've got my man, my brother from another mother, John Mediana on.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks so much.
And we're going to be talking about all things entrepreneurship, building a brand, faith, heart, and hustle today.
I love that.
Yeah, man. So let's just kind of start with the importance of building a brand. Why is that so important in today's time, man? Just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts about building a brand, a lot of people get it really confused, and there's like a lot of just bad information out there about what building a brand takes and what is it. And number one is you got to recognize that everybody has a brand, and a brand is a reputation. A brand is what you do consistently on a daily basis and how you show up. With your family, you have a brand, right? Your daddy, your husband, right? That's your brand. Mm-hmm. And what does that encompass in your home, right? What does that encompass in your community? You got some local businesses that you probably go see every day, and you're spending time in the grocery store and you're seeing that grocery person, right, out there, and you have a brand with them. You're the person that says hi, you ask how they're doing, you look them in the eye, shake their hand, right? You have a brand. To them, they see you on a consistent basis. So let's just spread that out a little bit wider now and take our microscope and turn it into this megaphone, right? A brand really is about your reputation in the market, but beyond that, just who you are in general. What is your values? Who are you as a person? What's your purpose? What's your mission? What's your vision? And how do you express yourself on a daily basis consistently? Because every day that you take breath, that's a day of having purpose in your life. That's a day of being on a mission. What is your mission? And if you don't recognize that you're on a mission, then you got to recognize that, number one, you have a mission, you have a purpose, and you're on an assignment. And your brand is that holistic encompassing of what that looks like.
Yeah, man. That's so good. I think I wasn't really focused on the brand in the beginning because I was just focused on client acquisition. So I was what we call bro scaling, just like spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads. And it wasn't until this time last year, like January. So I only had like 900 followers on Instagram. Yeah. And the time that we met at Jim Morris's event, when I was speaking on stage, like I had went viral at that time. Like 70 million accounts is what my account was just floating through on the internet. The algorithm had picked it up. And again, you couldn't even pay for that. So, and that's when I realized, I was like, oh, I've got it backwards. And I remember Alex Hormozi saying this too, that when he realized that he switched, it was that moment where Kylie Jenner, The Rock, and Conor McGregor had all became billionaires from their personal brand. And I was like, no, man, I'm just going to focus on leads. Yeah. But then I realized this story and its reputation, and it's a symbol of something. And I was like, okay. So I had to figure out like what I wanted to be known for. And I was kind of going back and forth. And when we met, I was like, man, I think I want to do the entrepreneurial journey. Yeah. And I just was like, I want to be known for the leads thing. The king of leads was like, okay, let's stick with that. Yeah. And since then, I think we had like 90,000. It hovers around that, but it's like 90,000 followers, which is absolutely insane.
That's insane. In the first 12 months?
Yeah, man.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and so what that's allowed me to do is have bigger conversations, right? Like obviously my social score is gone up, but now I can get in these rooms that I wasn't able to get in because I like go back and look through my DMs where I've already messaged everybody, but now I'm getting responses. Yeah. So what that reminded me of is like, oh, this is an asset. Mm-hmm. Your brand is an asset, right? It precedes you. And it's like, if you don't build that, like the narrative is going to be created either way. Yes. It's either through the marketplace, they're going to create the narrative, or you can actively take control and kind of build the narrative.
Absolutely. I think you hit it right on, man. And like the idea is everybody does carry a brand. And here's the thing, people don't know this, but Google's already building your brand for you, right? Google's already doing it. The internet's already doing it. So the question now is, do I want control over how people see me as, perceive my brand as, or do I want the internet to do it for me? And the reality is you don't want the internet to do it for you, right? Because you're just popping up and it's just the most random stuff that you're not even affiliated with sometimes. And people look you up. Yeah,
for sure. And it's so funny because we've had lots of conversations coming over to the house and everything. And it wasn't until we kind of uncovered this brand blueprint. I was like, oh, that's what it's going to be. And we kind of follow some same people in the social circle. And it was Myron Golden who kind of opened my eyes to something, because he was talking about this guy, Daniel Priestley, and he wrote this book called Key Person of Influence. And in this book, he makes this assertion that income follows assets. And so I'm like, okay, well, I like assets, right? Assets is something that puts money in your pocket. Liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. And, we create assets to like real estate. It's passive, right?
Mm-hmm.
You buy something and over time it appreciates and it increases as you pay into it, puts money in your pocket. I'm like, oh, well, my social presence, my brand is a digital asset.
That's it.
And I'm like, So if I post content on here, that's an attention asset that my social platform appreciates every day that I post content on. Yeah. So every day I can give myself a raise by posting content.
While you're sleeping. And this is what I love. I think we need to like re-engineer the way we see content. Because when I see content, one video for me is like I hired a manager in my company that's designed to go look for money and bring money to my company. Right. So each piece of content, I make it once and I put it out there and people are searching. And when it shows up, the algorithm and the content is designed to live on that platform to go find your audience for you. That's what content's supposed to do. Now, sometimes it doesn't work that way, right? When you're like, I only got a couple views on it. I only got this. It's because your content sucks.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just going to be blunt. Like, it just sucks. No one wants to watch it. Like, it's not interesting. It's not entertaining. It's not educational. Right? It's so wrong. And your first video is going to be your worst video. Right? Right?
Yeah. If I go back and look at my very first video, it's at my house. I'm in the corner. I got a suit that's 2 sizes too big. Yeah. I got this Walmart whiteboard. And I'm like, hey, this is Arturo. And I'm going to be showing you how to generate leads.
No confidence.
And you can just see it in my eyes. I'm like, I should have rehearsed that for the opening line and I didn't. But again, that's where I started. And I go back and look at that video that's still on YouTube, but it's like, that was my journey. That's where I started. Look at me now.
I keep things online. If you could go back to 2005 or 6 and you'll see content from my page, from YouTube, from all that stuff. And you'll see the journey and progression. But I look back because I always remind myself, like everybody starts at zero. Every single person starts at zero. And the more content you put out there, the more people can discover your brand. So if you're not putting enough content out there and you're wondering, well, how come I don't get any more leads? How come I'm not getting, my sales is struggling? It's like, well, how much content have you put out? How many offers have you made? How many people have you gotten in front of? Right? And digital content is one of the fastest and most fascinating ways to lead generate, you know? And it's called inbound marketing, right? You put yourself out there and people are magnetized to your persona where you could build trust, ability, likability, knowability, quick and in a hurry before they even jump on a call with you. They've already made the decision whether or not they want to work with you, the more content they consume from you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that what most people don't do is they don't value what a personal brand and what content can do. So let's kind of talk about that. So for me, my experience has been the first thing you need is attention. Attention is one of the most valuable resources now, right? Yeah. So you need to get attention. You need to get eyeballs. You need to get people looking at your page, traffic, right? You need that. Then the next thing is you need to entertain people. You need to create something that's actually going to engage with people so that they can see you as an authority or personality or something in the space, right? You need to have something good to say and say it often. Then the next thing is having conversations, right? To be able to take people from the platform, move them down a process that filters them. Because a lot of times what you're doing is having a conversation ahead of time in regards to sales. So I'm like, okay, well, you're having a conversation and then conversions, right? The process to take a stranger and turn them into a paying client as they get suggested to see you online, either on YouTube or Instagram. They start consuming your content, coming to your page. They start to follow you, then they engage. You have a back and forth conversation, and then ultimately they turn into a client. Yeah,
absolutely. This is what we would call in our company the stranger to superfan journey. And it's 6 stages, right? And you hit the majority of them, right? Awareness. How do people find out about your brand? This is like when you make content and you put it on multiple platforms, it creates multiple ports of entry where people could find and discover who you are, right? So that's awareness. How much time and effort you put out there to build awareness. You could be on a podcast, just like what we're doing today, and you could own other people's audiences. You can get in front of other people's audiences, and that's creating awareness. How many times have you heard about somebody because they were a guest on one of your favorite podcast shows? And you're like, who's that all about? And you go follow them. You end up following them, and you go through the journey. The second stage is discoverability. That's the social proof that you're talking about. Is what is this guy talking about? Are they entertaining me? Are they educating me? Right? Are they giving me more than what I'm looking for? Right? And if they like it, they'll go to the next stage, which is consideration. Well, what's the offer? Right? What are they offering me? Do they got a program? Do they got a course? And then they go to conversion. And that's where you talk about the conversion, the money thing happens, the money exchange, the value exchange. And then there's a fifth and sixth stage regarding the noise.
Yeah.
But after they spend money with you, what do? They got to build a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Right?
That's so good. And I think that like the thing that keeps most people from putting up content, right, is worrying about what people are going to think and how they're going to show up on camera. That's like the number one mindset issue that most people have is, I don't have this background, I don't have the right camera, right, of that. So did you ever have that thought process, or did you ever feel like, you know, how you were showing up kept you from creating content?
I felt like an imposter syndrome in the very beginning. You know, like, I know I got to do it, but what am I going to talk about? Who, like, and like, I'm just afraid, like, what do people think about me? What about my family? They're going to think I'm annoying, right? Just showing up, like my face is online and I'm just being annoying to my family and my audience and all that stuff. And then that kind of hinders your growth because you know you need it. Your business needs more traffic, more attention, more sales. And if you're not making content and if you're not putting yourself out there, it's like, I feel the pain that people feel when they're teetering on both sides of like, I want more sales, but I don't want to be that annoying salesperson. It's like, you don't have to be a salesperson. Right. I'll just give something valuable, right? And here's what I think. Like, if you're scared or don't know what to do, right, make content that speaks to your younger self where they were at, right? Where you were at a year ago. You got a lot of lessons that you've learned within these past 12 months, right? About building a business, about scaling, about building a team, about, you know, keynote speak, about all these things that you could teach on that you just been documenting and learning this past year. So what can you share that you've learned over the past year, even over the past month? And I would make content around that because there's someone struggling with that same problem. And it's biblical too, right? It talks about you go through the things that you go through, not just for you to go through them, but to help someone else on the other side that may have struggled with it. Right. So you're here to design, you're designed to help the person that has already been doing the thing, like you've done the thing, so you're helping the people that struggled with it. Right. Too. So that's the kind of content you need to be making, not trying to be comparing yourself to like, well, I love their content and they do really well at that content. Well, that's what they're called to do, right? Let's hone in on what you're called to do and your purpose and who you're designed to help and what business you're looking for. Because if you're trying to cater to everybody, you're going to cater to nobody. Yeah, that's so good. And it's funny because Dan Boltz and I've been kind of watching a lot of his content. And it's funny like how things go. Because I talked about the bro scaling in the beginning. It's just like trying to scale to the moon, getting to $1 million a month. And then you realize there's certain sacrifices that you have to make that you realize that you're not willing to do no matter how much money it is. And so Dan Boltz and I were in Sam Ovens' mastermind. And I kind of went back to looking at some of his content. And now he just talks about your niche of one, which is being authentically you at that point. And I think that sometimes we don't value who we are authentically, like having something to share or the knowledge or like who would listen to me and this. And you're saying it's like, no, just talk to your younger self. Yes. Here are the things that I wish I knew. Yes. In my 20s, right? We're all learners. If you're a leader, you're a learner, right? Yeah. If you're a leader, you're a reader. If you're a leader, you're a learner. You've had to learn something new this past year in business. And you made some mistakes, right? I know you got like 12,000 things. I got some lessons. You got some lessons, right? But imagine how valuable those lessons are if you were to give them to somebody. And be like, please don't make the same mistake I made. This will save you from a ton of headaches, a ton of heartaches. Right? If I just knew this earlier, what would that be? I would start with that content. Yeah. Right? Yeah, definitely some lessons. And I can remember waking up, and I don't know why, I was texting you, and you like, hey, you called me. And I'm at the gym on the treadmill, and I'm finishing up, riding on the bike and everything. And we had this long hour-and-a-half conversation. At the end, the one thing, there was a lot of things that stood out to me, but this was the most important. You were like, this stuff right here is what makes great leaders. Yes. And I was like, oh, man, I need to lean into that. Yeah. And I also learned this from Myron Golden also. He says that when you're trying to go to another level, you can easily self-sabotage yourself. And he said he calls it a stress ceiling. So we bump in our head on this stress ceiling. And subconsciously what we do is we start justifying, well, oh, we don't need to go to that level or we don't need these things. Yeah. And so we then digress, right? We can either ascend or digress. Either you're growing or you're dying. Yeah. And so then we try to like stay where we are, but you can't. You're not going there. So what you have to do is, he said that there's a scientific principle that everything has
an opposite side to it. I'm like, oh, okay. And he goes, there's a strength signal. Well, this is the area where you need to get better, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. Because once you realize that, now you're empowered that this is how you can get better every single day. So I'm like, okay, so I need to know what the strength signal, the stress ceiling is, so that then I can know what the strength signal is to be able to get better.
Yeah, and I heard this too. It was the fear of success is what cripples a lot of people. I mean, the fear of failure is the biggest one that cripples a lot, but there's a small percentage of people, entrepreneurs, that are afraid of being successful for some reason. I don't know what it is. And I'm just like, yo, bring on success, you know? But when you're asking for that, be careful what you pray about. Right?
Yes.
Because when you do face the opportunity of succeeding, it comes with many sacrifices and challenges in the very beginning. But once you overcome those, those challenges then becomes practice.
Dude.
And not just, you know, oh, this is the biggest challenge of my life. It's like, no, I already been through this. So that was my practice.
Yes.
And now I've just crushed it at this level because I've already been through so many challenges.
Yeah, so funny that you said that because I've been really thinking about like this stage is like the most difficult stage that I've been through in my life. Just, you know, had a cousin just pass away. Daughter got into an accident trying to get her car. My mom's car broke down. I'm selling my house, building a house, raising 2 kids that are under 3, not sleeping through the night. Got a new office I'm trying to decorate. I'm trying to level up my brand. You know, having some things going on in my business with some client. Wife's birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Alex.
Sorry, we'll take them home soon.
And then I'm transitioning my offer with some of my clients and building my brand. So it's like, okay. And it's again, we want the wine, but we don't want the crushing stuff on the grapes, right? And so I wrote this down this morning, which was, it says, trust that you have what it takes to handle everything. And then don't run from any of life's challenges. All your growth is in the lesson.
Come on.
I'm like, huh. Come on. And then it says, the achievement isn't getting to the top of the mountain. It's who you had to become to get there.
Wow, that's powerful, man.
I wrote that down.
That's a mind shift.
Yeah, it is. Because again, it's the stress ceiling, but it's the strength signal that you get from that. It's like, oh, okay. So I'm going to get better as a result of going through this, right? Absolutely. Like you go hiking, right? Yeah. I've gone to Cummings Falls, and you got your backpack on, you got music going, and you're just like,
how many times have you
holy crap, right? Yeah. But the moment you start to hear that waterfall, it changes you. You're just like,
I'm almost there.
I'm almost there. And you hear it and it's like, okay, no, we just got to keep going. It's right over there. And you know, stairwell, you're going down like this. And when it opens up, it was like, you forget all about that. Take your backpack off. It's like, you got your swim trunks on and you just want to dive right in. It's like, that's what it's about.
To add to that, brother, like when I hear other entrepreneurs and they're going through it, I believe what cripples them is this one thing. It's the lack of hope. The lack of hope. When you hear the waterfall, that's hope. Right?
That's so good.
Right?
Come on.
The lack of hope. And the thing is, like, no one is in their corner. They're not telling themselves, we're almost there. It's on the other side. I just got to keep on pushing. If you ever been training or anything like that in the gym, right? You just train, but you don't stop training because you're in conditioning mode. You know, but if there's never a goal or a performance or like a competition that's at the end of it, if you ever ran a marathon, you're like, I'm going to get to the marathon. I'm going to train for the marathon. I have a lot of friends that are marathon runners, you know, and they're like, dude, I'm in training mode. I'm like, when are you not in training mode, my guy? But there's on the other side of training is like, I'm conditioning myself for the marathon. Yeah. And the idea is like, when you're an entrepreneur and when you're starting your business, when you're hitting these challenges of just the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, like, yo, something massive is going to break through today, or I'm going to go bankrupt. It's like always either or. Yes. Right?
Yeah, it's so true, bro.
The lack of hope. Yes. Right? You need to instill that hope of saying, I'm going to get through this. This is where people fail. Yeah. This is where most people fail in my business, right here when the challenges come. When I got all these spinning plates, when I got this business that I got to shut down, this business I got to keep going. I'm moving, I'm doing this, and then accidents are happening, personal life's happening, all those things. Life doesn't stop.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so good that you say that because I think about it like waves, right? Like I know like Navy SEALs go through this training and I was like watching some videos where they go out into like 30-degree water and they're just challenging these waves and coming back. But the hope is they get through Bud's camp to become a Navy SEAL. So the end goal is if they can get through this, they can get to a certain level. And in entrepreneurship, my wife came to me last night. She's like, a lot's been going on and you've been struggling a little bit, but she's like, I saw this post and it made me think of you and I got it. Like as you're going, it's kind of like the stock market. You get higher highs and lower lows and higher lows. But the lows are such big dips now that because you're not close to the ground anymore, that sometimes you can kind of almost feel like you're going to drown in that. And so you have to continue to keep your eye on shore, which is like looking over here. It's like, no, you're going under, but it's just for a little bit and then you're to come back up. And so you got to focus on
I love this. I remember Pastor saying one time when we were in church, he was talking about how like Navy SEALs, like the first thing they train you if you ever get like seasick and stuff like that, you're in the sea and you're in the ocean, you're getting seasick, you got to look and focus on the horizon line, something that never changes. It's steady, right? It's just flat, it's steady. Once you lock your eyes on the horizon line, you could start bouncing out. But once you get stuck in the motion, that's when you start getting sick and you're just like, because you're focusing in that moment, right? You're just like moving around with the waves and all that stuff. And you have your eyes aren't focused on something that doesn't, move, right? So once your eyes are locked into something that's just stable and steady, come on, right? And that's just like, oh no, there's hope right there. There's hope on the other side. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? There's something that I could anchor myself on so I don't get sick during the challenges of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, man. And that's one of the things, entrepreneurship is definitely a challenge because, we're trying to solve a problem, right? So we're running into a burning building, right? All the time. What happens is like, we end up like, as a problem magnet, because that's where the gap is. It's like if someone's here and they want to get here.
We're the solution finder, so we got to run in there.
Yeah, so we're looking for problems, and the challenge is that like sometimes those fires can come in, and this can catch on fire, that can catch on fire. So as an entrepreneur, how do you kind of maintain and mitigate, putting out these little fires and maybe not like bringing that fire home? You know what I mean?
Yeah. The first thing I think about when you're mitigating fires or putting out fires is number one is where do you find your identity? Right? Because a lot of times, especially as a creative or an entrepreneur, your value is in the work that we do. And that's what society has taught us. It's like, if I'm not busy, if I'm not productive, I'm not valuable.
Yes.
Right? Especially as men.
Running around like a chicken with our head cut off.
Right? So if we're not putting out fires, like, we're not valuable, we're not contributing. Right? And that's a false, kind of myth. So number one, your identity is not in the things that you do. It's not in the work that you do. It's not any of that. Your value is because you're a human being. And you're a son and daughter of the living God, first of all. So if you don't go to church, you got to go to church. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you got to know your identity first. And that's unwavering.
Right. Because you get that from here and not from there.
That's right. So if you know your identity, number one, of whose you are and whose you are, then you can go into any situation confident to put out any fire, because all you got to do is, I have everything I need. And I teach my kids this. And I get the goosies talking about it, but they're 2 and 4 years old. And I show them, I'm like, all right, put your hands out. All right, now repeat after me. I have everything I need.
Wow.
When you live in abundance, when you live in overflow, when you live generously, right? You could look at any situation and be like, I got what I need for this. And if I don't, I'm going to figure it out because I'm connected to a source, right? So when you're in entrepreneurship, and the very first thing, especially as an executive, when you're a CEO running a company, right? You're the CEO because of your temperament to handle any stressful situation. And you're the one that sets the atmosphere for your team. So number one is know that your value doesn't come from the work you do. It comes from your designer. Number two is set the temperature, right? When something's going off, what is your attitude, right? How do you handle stressful situations? Are you calm, or is everything on fire and everybody knows it? Right? Like, your wife will come up to you, and there's some days, listen, like some days I win, some days I lose. Right? I'll come home and my wife goes like, are you okay? Yeah. Like, man, you just seem so stressed out. I'm like, yeah, I'm stressed out.
Yes, lots going on.
Majority of the days, I'm very calm and collected. And you're like, dude, this person just left. This person just happened. This client just like did this to you. This partner just, whatever happens, you're kind of calm and collected because you know that you're like, I got this. There's a confidence. And then trusting your team. So if you've built an amazing team, an amazing culture, right, you could trust your team. Like, I got a phenomenal team. I got Chris, Danny, I got a bunch of people.
Shout out to Chris and Danny. Shout out to Chris and Danny.
Hey,
sure.
Without them, I could have a sense of peace and joy because of the people I surround myself with. Even like my peers, like you, I could come and I could call. I know I could call you, right? I know I could call Mike White. I know I could call, my friend Dr. Just. I know I could call Jim Morris. And it's the people I choose to surround myself with, right, that helps me navigate these tough waters. Because I could ask for prayer. I could ask for advice. I could say, hey, I'm not asking for anything. I just need some place to vent without an agenda or something that you want from me or me. There's no agenda or motive except for, man, we're just in the fight together.
Yeah.
You need that.
Yeah, so good. Because like now that you said that, I heard this quote, and I don't know if you told me this, but it's like, if you're having success and you're feeling alone, you're doing it wrong. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that changed my perspective because let's be honest, for me, like, being a Black entrepreneur, like when I'm in some of these rooms, it's just me. Yeah. I'm breaking through. Other people are getting adjusted to me being in these rooms just as much as I'm getting adjusted to being in these rooms.
It's uncomfortable.
Right. But for me, I like that. Right. Yes, and so as I'm looking around, I'm like, oh no, I got a brother right here. Right. We're having these conversations because you can find people that you can align with other than just who you are as an entrepreneur and as a creator. Like with your mission, your vision, and your values.
I believe it because I grew up, I'm Filipino. Yeah. Right? I'm like our culture, we come from a hospitality culture, but when you're in the business world, it's mostly dominated just by the same kind of folks. And I say folks very loosely. But when you look in the room and you look around and no one else looks like you, it's kind of like intimidating. But at the same time, I'm like, I got everything I need. I'm fully confident. And actually, I belong here, and there's no one that could steal that away from you because you know your identity, number one. You know how you're made, how God made you for a purpose. You got a seat at the table, right? And when you feel confident, that confidence comes from the work that you've been doing and the practice you've been putting in. But ultimately, the confidence comes from being a child of God. Yeah, for sure, man. Right. And it's so good because it's unwavering confidence. Like sometimes when I'm working at my home office and I'm doing sales calls and stuff like this, my mom, she'll just come from around the corner and pull up. And she just does it randomly. And at first, it used to bother me because it would distract me. But then I realized what she's doing. She just pulls up, just pray over the house, and just keep on going. Don't say anything. Yeah. And so once I realized, I was like, oh, I'm good, right? And then like the journey that I've been on to kind of get here, people are like, well, why do you have so much confidence? I'm like, because I'm battle tested. Like most people's journey is like this short to have success. And mine is like this. Same. I feel like for us, we had to work 10 times harder than the average person because there's 10 times obstacles in the way sometimes, and that's okay for people that, they got their life and they got it set and they're living the generational kind of legacy of their family and all that stuff. That's all great and stuff. But for guys like us, we're coming from a generation of, just long generation of hard work, and like, my parents come from the Philippines. My dad served in Vietnam and he came here to America on a boat. He turned 21 on a boat from the Philippines. He turned 21, right? He served the country, did his time, and shout out to my dad. And he taught me, son, if you don't work, you don't eat, right? And it feels like we had just like some challenges growing up, just being Filipino, right? My dad was fired from his job when I was 9 years old because they just didn't like him. They didn't like who he was, it's just because he's Filipino and in a really dominant industry. And then he decided, when he got fired, he told me, he looked at me in the eyes, I was 9 years old. He's like, son, I just got fired from my job. I was like, what's a job? Yeah. I was like, are you not just sitting at home waiting for me to get out of preschool? Right. Right. So like, he said, son, I don't care what you do in your life, whatever career you choose. I was supposed to be a male nurse or a mailman. Right. So like, for me, he's like, I don't care what career you choose. As long as you grow up and you own something, they can't take it away from you. Yeah. You know what's funny about that? My mom was the same way. So she was a single mom growing up. And she would have to drop me off. So my cousin who just passed away, I would go over to his mom's house. And so we were kind of like brothers. And so she would work 11 to 7 a.m. as an LPN or nurse. So about 10 o'clock before I went to bed, she would drop me off at my aunt's house. And so my cousin was more like my big brother. And so I was over there all the time. And then my mom would work the normal job. After she got off, she was a home health care person. So then she would come pick me up from school and then take me to school. And then she would go to work. And as a byproduct of that, I was like, oh, I saw what it was like. Hard work with what she had to do. She didn't make any excuses. I didn't have a husband or a black woman in the man's world. She just picked up and did what she had to do for the people that she did. And so what that did was that just allowed me, it was like, oh, sometimes you just got to outwork people. That's it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to outshow up people.
and you got to outlast some things. Right. And so from that, obviously you need some talent, right? Then you need to develop some skills, right? And then you need to self-develop. And I was like, oh, well, I could work on some of this stuff because it was just kind of built in my DNA. Yeah. And then as I got into doing digital marketing stuff, I realized how creative I was. Yeah. Because in school, they see me as the bad kid because I never stayed in my seat. Right. Because I was just curious. Yeah, I wanted to kind of get around and do all this stuff. Yeah. And so now I'm able to tap into all of those things that I was labeled, by society before about as this kid. But it was just that I was curious, and I take that into things. Take that into sales, take that into marketing, take that into business, my business, take that into connecting with people, just generally, curious. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and what's so funny too is like the idea is like God's giving each person a gift, and that's biblical. Everybody's got their talent. A gift is a gift. They can't take it back. Everybody's got one, or many. And for us, He's given us lots of gifts, lots of skill sets that we can't take back, and it's like up to us to nurture those gifts. You know what I mean? But what's going to kill that gift is comparison. If we start comparing our journey with this other successful person, I'm like, oh, I ain't there yet. Or, man, they got it too easy. Oh, man, they're just better looking than I am.
Man, that's so good.
They come from money, right? And then we can start piling up the excuses. But at the end of the day, like your mom, it's like, but when's it time for you to take ownership and not feel like a victim and start taking ownership and become a victor and say, I'm just going to put in the work. Yeah. I'm just going to outwork, and I'm going to use my skill. I'm going to use that talent. I'm going to use that gift for my advantage, and I'm going to work 10 times harder because it's me versus me, not me versus everybody else.
Yeah, that's so good because comparison is the thief of joy.
That's right.
And if you think about it, the moment that you start comparing yourself to somebody, you're already in an inferior position.
You're already lost.
You're already thinking about what they have that you don't have, and the gifts that you have over here, kind of cast them to the side. And now you're kind of looking over here for that. Yeah. And so if you can start to just cultivate and really just work on your gifts, right? Like that could contribute. And that's really what I started doing is like, okay, let me figure out what I have in here that I can build and grow.
And what I really was attracted by when we first started building our friendship, brother, is that you are a practitioner. I love that. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that are in this space that just
talk a lot.
But when we first started building our relationship, bro, I was like, man, Arturo knows how to do stuff. He just doesn't talk about doing stuff. And that's two different things. You know what I mean? I met a lot of people that are just like, theorize about it and they talk about it so much, but I never actually seen them do it. You know what I mean? And I just like, well, show me. They're like, well, I can't. But let me tell you about how I would do it. I'm like, so you never done the thing?
Yes.
You never done it. So why are you teaching about it? And the one thing I absolutely admire about you is the practitionership of like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn it myself. I'm going to spend all this time in researching. They would call guys like you and me nerds.
Yes, 100%.
Because we're just curious.
Yeah.
And we want to know how it's done. We want to articulate it. We want to communicate it to a team. We want to say, I know where all the gaps are. I know where all the tension and friction is. And I could fix it like a chiropractor. If something's not working, I could go in there and adjust it myself without relying or having to rely on somebody else to take responsibility. And I think that's our upbringing as well. Yeah. Because nobody else is going to have to take the responsibility or full accountability or ownership except for us. Yeah. At the end of the day, because we're leaders. Yeah. Right? Leaders take ownership and take responsibility. When we mess up, we take ownership and be like, hey, that was a bad decision. I apologize. It's on me. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of the situation. Yeah. Right? Have you ever heard someone that ever rented instead of owned? When you rent, bro, it's like, I got to call the manager. I got to fix this, right? I got to fix the plumbing. I got to do this. I got to call somebody because I'm not the person. Right. You're not the person if you're just renting. Yeah. You know what I mean? How many friends do you know that are just renting social media right now?
Yeah, for sure. Right? Yeah, they just get good at marketing. That's it. And they figure out that you actually need to fulfill on the promise that you have. That's it, man. Well, that's so good. But as we're wrapping up the brand blueprint, I think that's a good principle that we can kind of end on is don't just be talking the talk. Be able to walk the walk. And don't forget that social media is a tool, right, to, to amplify who you are. And Myron Golden says, when your time comes, it's either going to reveal you or it's going to expose you. Woo-hoo-hoo. Right?
That's a good word for Myron.
Yeah, it is. So in saying that, talk about the principles of making sure that, you don't just build your foundation on flash and things to say online. Don't get caught up in the vanity part of looking the part. Yeah. And then when people actually experience you, right? Like they're let down.
Yeah, if you're just starting, this is the best place to fail, in the very beginning. Right? When you don't have the millions of followers yet, when you don't have the hundreds of thousands of followers yet, you have room to kind of test, learn, adapt. We have a saying in our company, TLA all day. Write that down. TLA all day. Test, learn, adapt. Now's the best time. And what you did in the very beginning, you started off with 900 followers. Mm-hmm. And what you did is test, learn, adapt. You weren't afraid to fail. Mm. And because you disconnected yourself from the fear of failure, you were able to overcome and test something new and not be afraid to do something new that would actually take your account to the next level and beyond, because you weren't afraid to just try.
Yeah, that's
and you did everything. So what I hope that your audience could get from this is that don't be afraid to try, and you're not too big. Your account's not too big. You're not deflate that head of yours because no one's really watching you right now. Okay, let's just be honest. Right. And if they are, you're not that big of a deal. Okay, humble yourself a little bit. But once you get that level of humility and saying, I'm just going to try and test, because on the other side of me testing, learning, and adapting, I could help serve somebody, right? I could help somebody out of their situation, right? Maybe they're poor, maybe they're on food stamps, maybe they're something right now. Like, I have a lot of friends that are like, dude, I'm just struggling with money. I'm like, why don't you package your knowledge into a course? And here's a free platform to do that for 30 days. And they're just like, oh my gosh, they did that. Now they're making 6 figures. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, just test it. Just humble yourself and be like, put in the work. Yes. That's it.
Facts. Yeah. Nothing beats hard work. At the end of the day, when you're looking at somebody, if you're in chapter 1 and somebody's in chapter 10, it's the things they've been doing it longer and they've been working harder than you are. So kind of as we wrap this up, I think a couple of things to really kind of focus on. Obviously, creating content and branding yourself is probably one of the biggest things that I wish I would have started at least a year or two ago. I wish I would have consistently focused on client acquisition and building my brand at the same time. So number one, get clear on who you're talking to. Yeah. And if you don't know who to talk to, start with, your older self, your younger self, right? Yeah. Then is say it often so that you can get good at saying it. Right.
Your message.
Yeah. Get your message down and then and stay consistent with it. Right. Yeah. Develop the skills.
And lastly, make sure that you have a solid offer. Like the thing is, if you're not making sales, it's probably because you haven't told your offer enough. You haven't said it. You know what I mean? You never put it out there. Well, what are you offering? Right. We just don't know. All your social media is like you talking about this and that, but you never said, hey, by the way, if you want to get connected to my course, if you want to purchase my course, if you want to get involved, here's the call. It's what we call a call to action. Have you practiced your call to action? So that's the last piece there.
So good. Well, brother, it's always a pleasure.
Always, bro.
Definitely a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for hopping on the brand blueprint. We'll see you in the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.